My grandfather smiled proudly at me from across the dinner table and asked about my new car. I looked at him, confused, and told him the truth. I didn't have a car. I took the last bus home from my second job every night, a ride that often left me shaking with fear. And across the table, my mother, Sharon, who had been listening with a serene, knowing smile on her face, suddenly dropped her fork. The clatter of silver on porcelain was the only sound in the world. It was the sound of a lie shattering. But before the lie shattered, it had to be built, and my mother was a master architect. My life was a repeating loop of exhaustion. My days were a blur of aching feet and the smell of stale coffee. I worked 2 jobs. From 9 to 4, I was a receptionist at a small, struggling dental office where I spent my day scheduling appointments and dealing with angry insurance companies. From 5 to 11, I was a waitress at the Greasy Spoon, a classic, run-down diner where the tips were meager and the customers were often rude. The work was grueling, mind-numbing and soul-crushing, but it was necessary. I was saving every single spare dollar for a dream that felt both laughably simple and impossibly out of reach: a reliable, used car. My current reality was the 10:45 p.m. city bus. It was the last bus of the night, a rolling, rattling metal box filled with the city's ghosts. I would sit, my body thrumming with the fatigue of a 16-hour workday, and pray for my stop to come quickly. The ride was a nightly exercise in quiet terror. I would clutch my purse, my keys woven through my fingers like a makeshift weapon, and avoid making eye contact with anyone. A car wasn't a luxury for me. It was a lifeline. It was safety. It was dignity. It was the finish line of a marathon I felt like I had been running my entire life. The finish line, however, kept moving further away, and the reason for that was my mother. I remember a phone call from her just last week. I was in the small, cramped room I rented, counting the crumpled dollar bills from my tips that evening. $73. A good night. I was just about to tuck it into the envelope marked Car Fund when my phone rang. "Hi, Mom," I said, trying to keep the weariness out of my voice. "Leah, honey," she began, her voice already thick with a manufactured, theatrical despair. "I am so sorry to bother you. I know how hard you work, but the electric bill came and it's a catastrophe. I don't know how we're going to manage this month. Your grandfather, bless his heart, sends what he can, but it just doesn't stretch. Don't you worry about me, though. I'll be fine. I'll just eat less." The guilt was a familiar, physical thing, a hook in my gut that she knew exactly how to twist. I looked at the $73 on my bed, the physical representation of 8 hours of serving greasy burgers and endless coffee refills. It was another small step towards my car, towards my safety. But my mother's performance was, as always, flawless. I pictured her sitting alone in the dark to save on electricity. I said, "It's okay, Mom," my voice heavy with the resignation I knew all too well. "I had a good night. I'll transfer you some money right now." "Oh, would you, sweetie?" she had replied, her voice instantly brightening. "You are such a good daughter, a true lifesaver. I don't know what I would do without you." I knew what she would do. She would be fine. But I sent the money anyway. The car fund was a little lighter, and the finish line was a little further away.
This was our dynamic, a toxic dance of her feigned helplessness and my conditioned sense of duty. It was so different from my relationship with my grandfather. Walter was my rock. He was a retired pipe fitter who lived a simple, modest life, but his heart was a wellspring of generosity. He was the only one who seemed to see me, who asked about my dreams, who told me he was proud of my work ethic. "You're a good kid, Leah," he had told me on the phone just a few days ago. "You work harder than anyone I know. You deserve some good things to happen to you." I had basked in the warmth of his praise. But I never told him the full truth. I never told him that I was giving his daughter, my mother, a significant portion of my earnings. I didn't want to worry him. I didn't want to cause a fight between them. I was protecting him from the truth of who his daughter really was. It was my silent sacrifice, another burden I carried to keep the fragile peace. And so, I arrived at my mother's house for our weekly Sunday dinner, exhausted but ready to play my part. My grandfather was already there, his face lighting up when he saw me. My mother greeted me with a hug that felt both performative and possessive. She had on a new silk blouse I had never seen before. She spent the first 20 minutes of dinner complaining about the rising cost of groceries, all while serving a lavish pot roast that must have cost a fortune. I just smiled and nodded, my mind a million miles away, already calculating how many tables I'd have to wait on to make up for the money I had given her. I had no idea that my life was about to change forever between the main course and the dessert. The pot roast at my mother's Sunday dinners was always a little too dry, but I dutifully ate every bite, offering compliments I didn't mean. "This is delicious, Mom," I'd say, and she would beam, accepting the praise as her rightful due. These dinners were a performance, and I had been playing my part for so long, I sometimes forgot where the character of the grateful, struggling daughter ended and my own true self began. The sacrifice I was making wasn't just the money I gave her. It was the truth of my own life, which I kept hidden, so as not to disrupt the fragile ecosystem of her carefully constructed narrative of victimhood. I sat there, listening to her complain about the price of beef, a familiar ache settling into my bones. My feet throbbed from the double shift I had worked the day before. I thought about the cash in my wallet, the meager tips from yesterday that I had already mentally earmarked for her after she had called me that morning, sighing about an unexpected plumbing bill. My life was a relentless cycle of earning and giving, a transfer of my own hard-won future into the black hole of her present. My mind drifted back to a particularly painful memory from last winter. I had been saving for months a secret, secondary fund for a new winter coat, as my old one had a broken zipper and thinning insulation. I had finally saved up $150, enough for something decent that would last me for years. I was planning to go shopping the next day. That night, my mother had called me sobbing. Her ancient water heater had broken, she had wailed, and the repairman needed $300 in cash up front, money she simply didn't have. "I'll just have to take cold showers, I suppose, in the middle of winter. Don't you worry about me."
The guilt had been immediate and overwhelming. I had gone to the ATM, taken out my entire coat fund, and driven it over to her apartment. She had hugged me, calling me her savior, her angel. A week later, I saw a picture she posted on social media. She was at a fancy spa resort with 2 of her friends, a much-needed girls' weekend. In the photo, she was wearing a brand-new, luxurious-looking cashmere sweater. When I had cautiously asked about it, she had waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, this old thing? I found it on a clearance rack for a steal. You know how frugal I am." That was the pattern. A crisis, a bailout, and a subsequent, inexplicable luxury purchase that I was meant to ignore. I endured it because I loved her, or at least, I loved the idea of the mother I wished she was. And I did it to protect my grandfather. The thought of him knowing the true nature of his daughter's financial life, of her constant manipulation of me, would have broken his generous, trusting heart. So I played my part, the dutiful daughter helping her struggling mother. What I didn't know, what I couldn't possibly have known, was that my mother was playing a far more complex and devastating game. She wasn't just taking from me, she was taking for me, and keeping it all. I can see it so clearly now, a memory that wasn't mine, but one I've pieced together. I can picture my grandfather, Walter, in his cozy living room a year ago, talking to my mother on the phone. He's worried about me. He knows I work late, and he hates the idea of me taking the bus alone at night. "Sharon," he says, his voice full of gentle concern,
I want to help Leah get a car. It's a matter of safety. I'm going to send you an extra $200 every single month on top of what I already send you for your bills. This extra is just for her. You put it in a safe place. Call it Leah's car fund. Don't tell her it's from me. You know how proud she is. Just tell her it's a little family fund we're all contributing to. And I can hear my mother's voice on the other end, a symphony of false gratitude. Oh, Dad, that is the most generous thing I have ever heard. She will be so thrilled. Thank you, thank you. You are the best father a girl could ask for. The deception was twofold and brilliant in its cruelty. To me, she painted a picture of herself as a struggling woman barely getting by on her father's meager help, thus guilting me into giving her my own money. To my grandfather, she painted a picture of me as a proud, secretive, and slightly ungrateful daughter, which explained why I never personally thanked him for the car fund I didn't even know existed. "How is the fund coming along?" he would ask her. "Oh, she's so grateful, Dad," my mother would lie smoothly. "But you know, Leah, so independent. She says she wants to save most of it herself. She's very private about it, but she's getting close. I can feel it." My secret weapon, the thing that would eventually unravel this entire web of lies, was something I didn't even know I possessed. It was my own simple, devastating honesty. My complete and total ignorance of the grand financial plan that had been orchestrated in my name. I was the only person at that dinner table who didn't know about the car fund. My mother knew the truth of her theft. My grandfather knew the truth of his generosity. And I, the supposed beneficiary of it all, knew only the exhaustion in my bones and the dwindling balance of my own savings account. I came back to the present with a start as my mother laughed at something my grandfather said. I looked at him, at his kind, loving face, and my heart ached with love so pure it was almost painful. He was the one true, uncomplicated good thing in my life. I wished, in that moment, that he could see how hard I was really working, how much I was struggling. I wished he could see the truth.
I had no idea that my wish was about to come true in the most spectacular and catastrophic way possible. I thought it was just another quiet, frustrating Sunday dinner. I had no idea my grandfather was about to pick up his water glass, clear his throat, and detonate a truth bomb that would change all of our lives forever. The Sunday dinner at my mother's apartment was a masterclass in her particular brand of performance art. The small dining table was set with her best china, the plates she only used when my grandfather was visiting. The pot roast was, as always, slightly dry, but she presented it as if it were a Michelin-starred creation. She fluttered around my grandfather, Walter, refilling his glass, laughing a little too loudly at his familiar old jokes, playing the part of the doting, attentive daughter to perfection. I sat through it all, a quiet observer. I was exhausted. The night before, I had worked a grueling double shift at the diner, staying until we closed at 1 a.m., and then caught the last bus home, arriving at my small rented room well after 2. But I was here, smiling and nodding, because this was Sunday, and on Sunday, we performed for Grandpa. We pretended we were a normal, happy, functional family. "I don't know how you do it all, Sharon," my grandfather said, shaking his head in admiration as my mother served him a slice of roast. "Working so hard, keeping this place so lovely. You're a wonder." My mother let out a theatrical, martyred sigh. "Oh, you know, Dad, it's a struggle. The bills just never seem to stop. I had a plumbing emergency just last week, an absolute nightmare. But we manage. We always do." She glanced at me, a silent, pointed reminder of the $73 in tips I had transferred to her account to help with this emergency. I focused on cutting my pot roast into
unnecessarily small pieces, my eyes fixed on my plate. I felt the familiar weight of her unspoken expectations, the guilt, the obligation. It was a constant low-grade hum beneath the surface of all our interactions. My grandfather looked at me, his eyes full of a warm, genuine pride that was a stark contrast to my mother's performative drama. "And you, Leah," he said, "your mother tells me you're working so hard, double shifts, saving up. That's my girl, the Pendleton work ethic. You get that from me." "I'm trying, Grandpa." I offered him a small, genuine smile. His approval was the one true, uncomplicated thing in my life. He winked at my mother over my head, a secret, conspiratorial gesture that I didn't understand. He said, "Well, I have a feeling all that hard work is about to pay off in a big way, a very big way." My mother, catching his wink, smiled back, a serene, beatific look on her face. She thought he was just being a proud grandfather. She had no idea she was winking back at the executioner of her own long-running deception. She thought they were sharing a secret about me. And in a way, they were. They just had two completely different versions of it. After the dinner plates were cleared, my mother brought out a store-bought apple pie for dessert. As she was cutting the slices, my grandfather gently tapped his water glass with his spoon. The sound was soft, but it immediately commanded the room's attention. "If I could have everyone's attention for just a moment," he began, a broad, happy smile spreading across his face. He slowly, with the creak of old joints, got to his feet. He held his water glass aloft. "I'm not much for speeches," he said, his eyes twinkling, "but I have something on my heart tonight. I've been thinking a lot about legacy, about what we build in this life and what we pass on. For me, the most important legacy is not money or property. It's character. It's the value of hard work, of independence, of earning your own way in the world." He turned his gaze fully on me, and my heart swelled with love for him. His eyes were so full of pride it was almost overwhelming. "And I have never seen that spirit more alive than in my granddaughter Leah," he continued, his voice thick with emotion. "She works harder than anyone I know. She doesn't complain. She doesn't make excuses. She just puts her head down and does the work. She has faced challenges, but she has done it with a grace and a quiet strength that makes this old man prouder than you can possibly imagine." I could feel my face flushing, a mixture of embarrassment and a deep, profound happiness. My mother was beaming, nodding along as if his words were a testament to her own good parenting. "And it brings me more joy than I can say," my grandfather went on, his smile growing even wider, "to see that quiet strength and hard work finally pay off, to see her achieve a dream she has worked so hard for, which is why I would like to propose a toast." He raised his glass high, his eyes locked on mine, radiating pure, undiluted love. "To my wonderful granddaughter, Leah," he declared, his voice ringing with celebratory joy, "and to her brand new car. I am so proud that the little car fund we all built together finally got you there." He paused, his face a picture of happy expectation. The entire world seemed to tilt on its axis. The words hung in the air, nonsensical and bizarre, completely disconnected from the reality of my life. New car? Car fund? The words didn't make sense. It was like he was speaking a foreign language. I looked at him, at his beaming, expectant face, and then my eyes instinctively darted to my mother. The serene, proud smile on her face had vanished. It had been replaced by a brittle, frozen mask of pure, abject panic. Her face, which had been flushed with a happy, social warmth, was now a pale, waxy white. She was staring at me, her eyes wide, with a silent, desperate plea. "Don't you dare." But I wasn't looking at her anymore. I was looking back at my grandfather, the man I loved, the man who was looking at me with such hope and pride. And he had asked me a simple, direct question. My mind was a screaming chaos, a whirlwind of confusion and a dawning, sickening sense of dread. The two realities, the one my grandfather believed and the one I was living, were crashing together right here at this dinner table. And I was standing at the epicenter. He was waiting for an answer, and the only thing I had to give him was the truth. The dining room was quiet for a moment. The only sounds, the gentle clinking of silverware on my mother's best china and the low, contented hum of my grandfather's praise. The warmth of his words was a balm on my weary soul. For a moment, sitting there in the candlelight, I could almost believe in the illusion my mother had so carefully crafted. The illusion that we were a normal, happy family, celebrating the quiet successes of one of its own. My mother, Sharon, was beaming, nodding along as if his words were a testament to her own good parenting. She was so confident in her web of lies, so secure in her role as the long-suffering matriarch, that she couldn't see the precipice she was about to be pushed over. My grandfather, Walter, raised his glass high, his eyes watery with age and affection, locked on mine. "To my wonderful granddaughter, Leah," he declared, his voice ringing with pure, undiluted love. "And to her brand new car. I am so proud that the little car fund we all built together finally got you there." He paused, his face a picture of happy expectation. The entire world seemed to tilt on its axis.
The words hung in the air, nonsensical and bizarre, completely disconnected from the reality of my life. "New car? Car fund? Tell us all about it, honey," he boomed, his face a picture of pure joy. "What did you get?" The question, so full of love and happy expectation, landed on me with the force of a physical blow. A profound, dizzying confusion washed over me. I looked at my grandfather's beaming face, and then my eyes instinctively darted across the table to my mother. The change in her was instantaneous and horrifying. The serene, proud smile she had been wearing just a second before was gone, vanished as if it had never been. In its place was a brittle, frozen mask of pure, abject panic. Her face, which had been flushed with a happy social warmth, was now a pale, waxy white. Her eyes were wide, and in their depths I saw a single, silent, desperate plea. "Lie. Lie for me. Save me." But I couldn't. I didn't even know what the lie was supposed to be. All I had was the truth. I turned my confused gaze back to my grandfather. "A car?" I asked, my voice a small, bewildered whisper that seemed to echo in the suddenly silent room. "Grandpa, what car? I don't have a car." I saw the proud smile on his face begin to falter, his brow furrowing into confusion. "I take the 10:45 bus home from the diner every night," I continued, my voice gaining a little strength as I tried to explain my own reality to make sense of his. "My savings are actually a little low this month. I've been trying to help Mom out. I gave her my tips from last week to help with that plumbing bill she had." As I spoke these simple, honest words, a small dramatic movement happened across the table. My mother, in a desperate attempt to project an air of normalcy, had been in the middle of lifting a forkful of apple pie to her lips. Her hand was trembling violently. And as I said the words, "Help Mom with a plumbing bill," her control shattered. Her fingers went slack. The fork fell. It fell with a clatter that was loud and sharp as a gunshot in the silent room. Silver hit china with a piercing clink. The sound of a lie being exposed, of a performance ending in catastrophic failure. My mother didn't even notice it. She was staring at her plate, her face a crumbling mask of guilt and terror. The mask was gone. The loving, concerned mother had vanished. In her place sat a thief, a cornered, terrified thief.
My grandfather followed my gaze to the fallen fork, then to his daughter's horrified, ashen face. He looked back at me, at my own tired, earnest confusion, and I could see it happening in his eyes. I could see the pieces of the puzzle, the two separate realities he had been living in, finally, horribly, slamming together in his mind. The extra money he sent every month for a car I'd never seen, the tip money I had been giving my mother out of my own meager earnings, the lies she must have told him about my pride and ingratitude, it all connected, forming a single, ugly, and undeniable picture of his own daughter's profound deception. The look of pride on his face was replaced by a look of such deep, wounded disappointment that it broke my heart. And then that disappointment cooled, hardening into a cold, quiet fury I had never seen him before. He ignored my mother completely. He spoke to me, his voice low and shaking with controlled rage. He said to me, his eyes boring into mine, "Leah, honey, tell me again. You take the bus home from the diner every night?" "Yes, Grandpa." "And you have been giving your mother the money you earned from your tips?" "Yes, Grandpa, to help her with the bills."
He finally turned his cold, furious gaze upon his daughter. He did not yell. He did not scream. His voice was a low, dangerous whisper that was far more terrifying. "Sharon," he said, his voice like ice, "for the past 12 months, I have sent you a separate check for $200 every single month. In the memo line of every single one of those checks, I have written the words, Leah's car fund." He leaned forward, his old hands flat on the table. "My granddaughter has been working herself to the bone, giving you the money off her own tired feet because she thought you were destitute. Now, you will look at me, and you will tell me, where is the money?" My mother just sat there, frozen, the fallen fork a silver accusation on her plate. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She was trapped. She was exposed. There were no more lies to tell. There was nowhere left to hide. My grandfather's final question, "Where is the money?" hung in the silent dining room like a judgment. It was a simple question, but it held the weight of a lifetime of lies, a year of stolen dreams. My mother, Sharon, stared at him, her face a crumbling mask of utter devastation. The web she had so carefully woven for years had just been torn to shreds by a single, honest sentence from her own daughter. She opened her mouth, a desperate, guttural sound escaping her lips. I was saving it for her," she stammered, the lie thin and pathetic. "In a special account. I was waiting for the interest to accumulate for the right time." "The right time?" my grandfather repeated, his voice dangerously soft. "The right time was every single night for the past year that my granddaughter stood at a bus stop alone in the dark because she couldn't afford the car you were stealing from her. The right time was every single time she handed you her hard-earned tip money because you lied to her about being destitute." He stood up from his chair, his old body straight and rigid with a righteous fury. He looked at his daughter, the woman he had raised and supported, and I saw the love in his eyes curdle into a deep, profound sorrow and disgust. "I have spent my life working to provide for my family. I thought I was helping you. Instead, I was funding your greed and enabling you to steal from your own child." There is nothing more to say. He turned his back on her then. It was a simple gesture, but it was an act of finality, of a door being closed forever. He walked around the table to me, his face a mask of grief. "Come, Leah," he said softly, placing a trembling hand on my shoulder. "Let's go home." I stood up, and together we walked out of my mother's apartment, leaving her alone amidst the ruins of her perfect dinner party, a solitary figure in the wreckage of her own making. We didn't look back.
The days that followed were a quiet, painful unraveling. The phone calls, when they came, were not from my grandfather. They were from my mother. Her initial messages were a frantic barrage of accusations, blaming me for turning her father against her and destroying the family. Then, when I didn't respond, the tone shifted to desperate, manipulative pleading, full of tearful apologies that were not for her actions, but for the consequences she was now facing. I listened to one voicemail where she sobbed about an overdue bill, and I felt nothing but a vast, empty sadness for the mother I wished I had, and a grim resolve to protect myself from the one I actually did. I blocked her number. A week later, my grandfather called me. His voice was steady, but I could hear the exhaustion in it. "Leah," he said, "I've made some arrangements. The monthly support I was sending to your mother has been terminated. She is a grown woman. It is long past time she learned to stand on her own 2 feet." He paused. "My help, from now on, goes where it is needed and where it is appreciated. It goes to you directly. This is how it should have been all along." And so our new life began, a life built on a foundation of brutal but clean honesty. We spent more time together than ever before, our bond forged stronger in the fire of my mother's betrayal. We talked for hours, filling in the gaps that her lies had created, sharing truths we had both been too scared to speak. The following Saturday, he took me to a car dealership. Not a flashy one, but a large, reputable lot for certified used cars. "A brand new car loses half its value the second you drive it away," he said with a practical smile. "A good, solid 3-year-old car is the smart choice." We spent the afternoon test driving sensible sedans and practical SUVs. I found a beautiful dark blue hatchback, a car that was safe, reliable, and perfect for me. At the finance desk, my grandfather wrote a check for the full down payment. It was a generous amount, far more than the total he had sent to my mother for the car fund. He then slid the final paperwork and the pen over to me. "You sign," he said, his eyes twinkling. "You're the one building your future." As I signed my name, my hand was steady. This was real. This was mine. It wasn't a gift born of a lie. It was a partnership born from the truth. That night, for the first time, I drove myself home from my late shift at the diner. I didn't have to check the bus schedule. I didn't have to stand on a dark, lonely corner, my keys woven through my fingers. I just walked out into the cool night air and got into my own car. As I drove through the quiet, sleeping streets, the feeling of the wheel in my hands was the feeling of freedom. I thought about the money. The money my mother had stolen was never really the point. The real theft was the trust she had broken, the love she had manipulated. My vindication wasn't in her financial ruin. It was in this quiet moment. This simple, profound act of driving myself home safe and sound. The car wasn't a luxury. It was a tool of my independence, an independence I had been working for my entire life, and one that was finally made possible by a love that was direct, honest, and true. A truly heartbreaking story of betrayal, but one with a beautiful, empowering resolution. What do you think of the way the grandfather's love finally reached his granddaughter? Let us know your thoughts on this complex family drama in the comments below. If you were touched by this story of justice and healing, please show your support by hitting that like button, and be sure to subscribe for more powerful daily stories. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.